more involved questions. Okay, so the first thing is I wanted to talk about why you would want to have as a four-year school, or especially an LSAMP where you're dealing with a bunch of four-year schools. Why would you want to deal with a group of community colleges? And so there are several incentives for that, and one of them is that certainly there is a national need in STEM. We have too few people going into it, and so as everybody knows, if you write these proposals, we have to involve more people in STEM for the nation, and also to be able to get more of a distribution of diversity into the STEM discipline. So the other thing is you can increasing number of students entering high school or coming through community colleges. So as the numbers indicate, we're getting a lot more people that will come through community colleges, especially as the cost of four-year schools is up. In a lot of areas, you get a high percentage of underserved populations in STEM in the community colleges. At least that's the situation in northern New Jersey. They're all HSIs or HSIs and PBIs, as opposed to a lot of the four-year schools, which are not. And clearly, if you want to fuel your enrollments in colleges and in LSAMPs, getting students to be able to transfer successfully from community colleges is certainly a big incentive. Okay, so basically, along with that, then the goals are kind of to address those incentives. You're going to encourage more community college students to pursue BS degrees to get them to move on and not just end with the AS degree. We want to simplify the pathways to a BS degree. So a lot of times I will go into my talks and I'll say for a lot of community college students, negotiating where and how you're going to go to a four-year school is like looking at a plate of spaghetti. There are so many pathways. They all seem to intertwine with each other. And sometimes that can be a little bit overwhelming. So we want to try to simplify that pathway. We want to try to create a seamless transfer process so that courses transfer, there's an alignment of curricula, things like that, so it makes it a little easier. We want to follow up on to ensure our success. We want to make sure that once they're getting in, we kind of watch the how things work, and we want to be able to populate the system. So the more people we can get into there, the better off we're going to be. Okay, so there are a bunch of problems that that people don't really understand that are going to happen when you try to deal with get community college students into a four-year school. So there's first of all, really we get uneven student preparedness. So a lot of the students that come in, depending on the school, will be of various stages of preparedness. And this is kind of a strange thing for four-year schools because most schools, you have a certain level that you shoot for in your incoming students, and you'll say, well, we want above this ranking class or above this score on your SATs, and pretty much people will come in at that level, and maybe the real good ones who are much better than what you're at will go to a better school, so you wind up with all of the students being about the same. Whereas in community colleges, and especially in inner city areas, you can have kids who are really sharp and could be going straight into top schools, but because of financial reasons or maybe family reasons, they're going to a community college. And you have that variation all the way down to kids that never tried in school whatsoever and probably shouldn't be in college. And so the community colleges are serving a huge, variation in their students, as opposed to four-year schools really don't have to deal with it that much. So that's one thing that you have to kind of that's difficult to understand for a four-year school. As I said, the current transitions are confusing and most of them aren't very supportive. Unless there's a system in place to help the community college students through, it's very difficult. And then the next thing is a lot of students, once they get into the community colleges, don't look past that current degree. Basically, they're in college for the first time in their family. They don't have any other family members that have gone through college. In a lot of cases, can't give them really good advice on it. A lot of their friends aren't going to college, and so they're kind of in this on their own. And so they will say, okay, my goal is to finish that degree and that's it. And they don't look past that, there's actually another place you can go. You can get more education, or maybe this degree is going to lead you to some career. And so there's those difficulties that are just areas of miscommunication or not understanding the system that well. Okay, so what I'll do now is just to give you a little background on this Garden State LSAMP and Northern New Jersey Bridges to the Baccalaureate program. So the Garden State LSAMP has 8 colleges and universities in Northern New Jersey. We established it in 2009, and we're currently in phase 2. As anyone who's from a LSAMP knows that your first phase, or at least in the old days, your first phase was to double your number of underrepresented minority STEM graduates within 5 years. Some people did it and some people didn't. And in fact, the Garden State LSAMP actually doubled their numbers in 4 years. So we were only the second LSAMP in the history of the program, 25 years, to be able to double our numbers in 4 years. And so one of the things, as I said, in that point, we experimented with programs with Essex County College, the PBI and an HSI, which is right next door to Rutgers Newark. So it was very easy. We could have things cross campus and go over there whenever they wanted us to check on things. We added the 5 associate member community colleges of feeder community colleges to all of our LSAMP from around the area, and we established the Northern New Jersey B2B in 2013 to 14. And that basically the idea was to disseminate the GSLSAMP best practices, but we were doing it as 2 consortia interacting. So the LSAMP was a consortium of primarily 4-year schools, whereas the B2B is of 2-year schools. Okay, and so in New Jersey, you wind up spending a lot of time on the highways in traffic jams. So one day while I always wanted to get kind of a symbol for what it would be, what we could use to illustrate what it was like going from an associate's degree and all the opportunities ahead of you. So I was sitting in a traffic jam, and you might as well have something good come out of a traffic jam because not much else does. So I kind of came up with this picture, as you can see here, where, here was an associate's degree. Here's a person in community college, and the associate's degree should really be looked at as just a mark in the road, just a benchmark that you pass by and continue on to go on and do something else, to get at least finish up with a bachelor's degrees. And maybe after that, you can go off and into a master's program or a PhD program, or maybe you'll go off into more of another medical degree or a law degree coming from there. But basically, only think of these things. Your education continues as a superhighway and doesn't necessarily stop just at the end of the degree. So basically, that was the idea. Don't think you stop just because you earned the degree. You got to keep going. Okay, so what do we do? So some of these are pretty much best practices for all LSAMP. So establishing a learning community is absolutely essential regardless of where you go. So we did that with our Garden State LSAMP, and really you get a bunch of students working together all with a common goal, and they'll help each other out, and certainly that works everywhere, and you have to establish that in both places. We did online resources for normalizing preparation because you get this uneven preparation, and I still get problems with some community college students who come in and they're really not ready to take on the courses at Rutgers University, and they have great difficulty in their first year, and it's a transition. So what we wanted to do is to try to normalize that so everybody comes in pretty much at the same level, and I'll show you some of those in a minute. We set up cross-campus peer-to-peer mentoring, which really seemed to work. You get students from 4-year schools, you connect them up with some mentees at a 2-year school, especially people who have made that transition before, and they can give good advice. They can give people, they can help them with classes, they can help them with their application process. It really worked out nice. The next thing is we did cross-campus research experiences. So actually I would recruit students from the 2-year schools and have them vetted by their professors and everything else, and then we bring them in for an interview, and if they were serious students, I would place them in research labs of faculty at the four-year schools. And so then not only did they get the research experience, but also they got the experience of going on to this other four-year campus and being able to, then see that next step of going to the four-year school. Next thing is we have full alliance events. So you bring everybody together a couple of times and show that this community is just bigger than the school you're at, but that represents a lot of places. Scholarly presentations. I put two of them on 2 weeks ago. I went to two community colleges and gave them presentations on a piece of research that was being conducted at the four-year school. And so if you can get a lot of people are certainly willing to come and give presentations at the two-year schools, and it's very rewarding because then you meet the students and they think maybe that's a way to go. We have transfer conferences where we would bring the community college students to Rutgers University, and they could take tours of the university and have talk to all of the admissions officers from all of the schools at the Garden State LSAMP. We have advisement and counseling for the students that we set up at each of the two-year schools. And, you have to generate enthusiasm. That's the big thing amongst people. And then also you start working with the administrative levels to have articulation agreements and alignment efforts instituted from the administrative level. And so obviously you need a supportive administrative staff to help that out. Okay, a learning community. As I say, this is something that's a best practice for all LSAMPs. Student work as a group for success. They all help each other out. They give each other academic and emotional support to be able to get through any of the difficulties they go through. You get a critical mass. It's always good to think that you're part of a group that are all trying to do the same things. And the best thing that I've ever found with this is to have students ahead of you and behind you so that you know that you're not the only one doing this, that there are other people also trying to do the same thing, and it makes you feel part of a group and that you can be successful doing it. Okay, so as I said, the issues of preparations for transfer. Many of the STEM courses in community colleges are not taught at the same level as a four-year college. There's a problem that people don't understand from four-year schools is that a lot of the community colleges rely on bringing in adjuncts to do a lot of the teaching. So there's not that many, full-time faculty like there are at a four-year school, at least in the ones that we've dealt with. And so therefore, being able to ensure that, the level that you're teaching at is the same all across the two-year campus, much less the same across a 2 to 4 year campus, is not so easy. So as I said, the less coverage, a lot of times if you get a lot of students in the class who really don't belong in college, they can hold the class back and the class doesn't get to the point where the professor really wants to. And then, as I said, the adjunct professors rather than the full-time faculty, oversight becomes an issue because you just don't know if they're really covering things as well as you would like. So competition is reduced at community colleges amongst the students in a lot of cases. There are also more personalized instruction at community colleges. And the ones we deal with, they really they will really model the students in comparison to Rutgers, where they pretty much are left on their own. And what we can do then is focus on gateway courses and critical junctures. That's where we kind of really worked at this to move this process together. Okay, so one of the things we used is Alex, and maybe some of you have already had some experience with Alex, but this is a course, and here as it's now distributed by McGraw-Hill, it actually was its own company before when we started working with them. But what it does, which is very interesting, is that, since math really builds up from all of what you've learned all the way back from first grade, all the way up to college, you have a lot of areas that you're supposed to remember from back when. And a lot of times people are possibly not completely prepared in those old areas, or maybe they just don't remember. And so they have weak spots in their preparation. And a lot of that when you get into the upper level classes, you're sitting in a calculus class and they say, okay, we're gonna, we're gonna do the differential on the cosecant. And you say, geez, cosecant. And then you lose focus on the course and it gets away from you and people don't do so well. So what this does is it gives you a little test in front end and it sees where your weaknesses are and then builds an individual program that you can do at a self-paced rate to be able to then fix up all of those spots in your background that might need a little bit of work. And so we found this to be very useful. So I'll show you a little study we did when we started this out. And we modified the program, and our modifications were that you can't just let students do this on their own. Because after all, if they were going to study on their own, they wouldn't need it. So a lot of the students who really need something like this don't put the effort into the first place. So we would get them to sit in the room, we'd get them to do part of the program in front of us with no distractions and, and making sure they're working consistently at it. And we would time that out to see how much they should do at any given time. And then we could watch them as they worked at home to make sure that they were actually doing the work. If they had a problem, we had people ready to answer them and help move them on. If they didn't make a solid effort, we would call them back in and make them sit in front of us and work. And so therefore, those were the big modifications that we did. So my test case was with 28 LSAMP scholars. They had a cumulative GPA in math of 1.8 coming into this. So these are C minus D plus math students. We did a 6-week summer program. As long as they put in 3 to 4 or more hours per week, we considered that, that they were making headway and they should have been able to complete the program. The same group the following fall achieved a 3.45 in their math courses. So therefore, this thing worked phenomenally well. And we've seen, we just got an award for being a bright spot for Hispanic education by the White House. I had brought a student in to talk about her experience, and she had failed pre-calculus twice, and then did this ALEX program for 6 weeks, under the same guidance we have here. And the following fall, she just missed an A, wound up with a B plus in math. So here's somebody, she should have failed again. You fail twice, you're going to fail again. And it was just, this program is that powerful. So we disseminated it to the rest of the Alliance, and we made it a prime practice for the Northern New Jersey Bridges to the Baccalaureate, which means that all the students who would come into the LSAMP from the B2B would all have the same level of math, or at least this should be the same ability in math once they come in. Well, at least that's the idea. So that was the first one. The second one we had was an academic success boot camp. And a lot of students are, at risk, okay? They start to plummet in their grades. You can watch them go down to a 2.2 or 2.1 or even on academic probation. And so we said, ooh, these people are going to drop out of school if we don't do something. So we put together this modified, it's a Pearson's My Foundation Lab. I mean, that's a common program. Again, our modification was similar. You got to watch them. You have to monitor them. You have to call them in when things go wrong. You have to make sure you know what their pace is supposed to be so they're not watching TV or talking on their phone while they're supposed to be working. And we can watch all that from home and then bring them in and make them work in front of us. So these things were basic things for college: time management, note taking, studying, test taking, writing research papers, everything. So we brought together a group of students as our test, 16 students, about a 2.0 GPA, all plunging, half of them on academic probation, put them through the 6-week program for the 16 students, 3 to 4 hours a week. 12 completed the program. The following semester, they were 265, 282, 297. We had a couple of them wound up in graduate school with 3 5s. The 4 who didn't complete, the following semester, 3 of them survived. They made a 1.58. By the following semester, all of them were gone. So therefore, this saves those students from, the worst thing you can do is have, start putting time into a student, get them in the middle of a program and have them drop out of school. So this was very useful for that. The next thing is we had this 4-year to 2-year cross-campus peer mentoring. We took four-year students who transferred in, made a successful transition, knew what was going on between the two. We had them meet in person, social media, phone, text, email. I'm doing it again this year. I, in fact, got a supplemental grant from the state. We now have 14 mentors mentoring about 75 to 80 mentees right now. So this would help community college students through the difficult periods, have somebody to support you emotionally. They connect the students to the four-year students and institutions, and it recycles that experience and enthusiasm that our four-year students got by going through the process themselves. So I'm big into this recycling of experience because it really helps you have them do the work for you. Boy, it works much more than me standing there talking at them. And anyway, so it also benefits the mentor as well as the mentee, and I'll show you in a minute a study we did. So here's this one. This is called, I just put this in new, but it's called the Protege Effect. And there's been some papers on it that came out in about 2010, where the mentor works with a group of students, and here's a summer program that I ran, and you can see the mentor is explaining some complicated equipment, and all of the students are listening intently, and they can look at this person as a role model and a source of information, and also you see another person that maybe went through the same things as you actually succeeding and getting to that point. So the mentor feels an obligation to give back to these students and to set an example for them that they've gone through this and now they're going to help the next group through. So not only does it help the mentees, but it helps the mentor. And so I went through, I'm going to hopefully get this published someday, but I didn't know what was going on, but in my university, all of a sudden we went from having retention issues with a lot of the underrepresented minority students. So we would have zero. We'd have some who would flunk out, go to a community college just to get back in again. And I was floored at it. So I wanted to see if it was because of this. And here was one of the, I have to always put this up because I'm always so impressed by it. But here's one of our students. And as he said, I gave a speech of the importance of education at my church home in Baltimore. As a Black American, I have to help pave the way for those that come behind me so that my people can continue to obtain success, happiness, and freedom. My mouth still drops open when I see this. So anyway, that's where it goes. So here's the other thing. We have research by the community college students at the four-year schools. And you can see here's a student who's from a community college who did research. And this is at our research day, our research symposium. We have these once a year. And you can see they really take pride in the understanding that they've gained, and these students go on 100%. They transfer up to those four-year schools, and they succeed and do very well. So I can't emphasize this enough that this really works. Okay. So, and another part of that just to show you what the Full Alliance event was. So that student was at one of that was just a little piece of the Full Alliance. So we have an annual conference where we bring everybody together. Last year we had 1,000 students showed up to this event from the community colleges and our four-year schools. We have a graduate workshop we build right into it so that even the students from the community colleges start getting pulled into that idea that even the bachelor's degree may not be the end of this. We also, as I said, we have a transfer day. And we have campus visits. So we bring students over to the four-year campuses in groups and show them around and get them to feel comfortable with coming to these places. So here's our annual event. You know, it makes you feel like you're part of a larger community. So you can see this was an event that's just this past fall. We had 1,000 students show up. We had, faculty members, we had administrators, we had lots of people, and all the students involved in here were part of a bigger group. And that really helped them out to feel like they weren't alone, but to feel like you're part of a group. Okay, and here was also graduate school, as it says, never too early. So we get the community college students these are workshops we put together where they could talk to other people and talk to each other about what their ideas of graduate school were. And a lot of times we would have monitors coming around to help make sure things went well. Okay, we had faculty presentations at community colleges. So a lot of the faculty at the four-year schools, if they think that they're going to really help get better undergraduate students for their programs, they will volunteer. And so we've done pretty well with getting people to volunteer for this. Okay, and then a big thing that I do is I bring back successful graduates to extend that pathway. Because here you get somebody who's in the business now who comes in and says, hey, I was in the same place you were how many years ago, and here's what I did, and I know here was the hardship I faced. I mean, a lot of the kids in Newark face gang issues and drugs and violence, and they come back and say, yeah, I had to do that too, and here's how I got around it, but this is what I'm doing now. And it really gives the students a real person to look up to as a role model for them to move forward. Okay, here's our transfer day. We had students man most of these booths to have them, and we grouped them differently a little bit than a regular transfer day where we would just meet with the colleges. We had the students first meet with other students who were Garden State LSAMP students who had transferred and were in specific disciplines. So we had them go by discipline so somebody could give them direct advice on, oh, here's my experience. I looked into this school. They have this. That's why I wanted to go there, whatever the case is, and then go and look into the college. So we did it interest by field first and then by college. And make it important. So as you can see in this picture, this is, we were lucky enough, when I first started this, the other person who started with me was a guy by the name of Carrie Booker, and he left the school, but his brother is Cory Booker, the senator. So I imposed upon him to get Cory to come in and give us our speech, and that's Tasha Innes from NSF next to him. So you get a senator to come in and talk about what the importance is, and you can generate some enthusiasm amongst the students saying, wow, this is an important thing. So you got to make it important. Okay, and publicity always helps. You get a picture of your students in the newspaper, and they all love it. They'll say, wow, this is important. If they're about to put it in the paper, this can help. And of course, this was beautiful. It came out a week before our annual conference. And, you just have to tap any sources you have. Okay, so here's a couple of items you got to watch. So the community colleges don't often deal with the National Science Foundation. So if you're going to go after a grant through NSF, you got to watch this. And I've been on panels a couple of times with the head of the, OSRP of the research office will be the PI on the proposed grant. And the panel just went, oh my God, you can't do that. I had an STEM I applied for last fall, and I had 5 other community colleges on it. Nobody was registered for NSF. Not a single person. I had to submit it by myself, and of course it got turned down because you need to get, so you have to, if you're going to involve people and you want them to be co-PIs, and you definitely do because it looks better to the panel that you have buy-in from all of the other schools, you got to start early because a lot of them are not registered with NSF. Okay, only one of the 6 colleges we dealt with actually had an NSF grant before. Community colleges don't always have the same priorities. You need to work through that. We've had cases where we would come in and talk to them and they say, well, we have this Department of Ed grant and it pays us $3 million. Why should we waste our time with yours since it's so much less? So you got to kind of have them understand what the priorities are going along with this. You have fewer full-time faculty. They're stretched out. They have 16 other classes to deal with and all kinds of things. To have them become part of this, it's a lot of work, and some of them are just less dedicated. Some community college students or faculty aren't as dedicated as the 4-year. I mean, some 4 years are not too. So the big thing is you want faculty and administrative support, both, not just one. You also want to be able to try to get people to talk about institutionalization immediately, that anything that comes, you talk to the administrators that if these things work, think about adopting them for your institution. And we've been very successful with that, especially with the Alex. Some of these community colleges actually have adopted it and put it into their math programs, which is phenomenal, because then we don't, the grant doesn't have to pay for it anymore. So some of these things you got to watch as you go through. Okay. So as I said, buy-in by administrators. You got to get an administrator who is going to support this. They have to support the faculty doing this. They have to help push it around the campus, show up to events, the works. You got to have buy-in by faculty. You go in there without a faculty person who is not going to really roll up their sleeves and get into it with you, and you're going to bang your head against the wall. And I can't tell you how many times I've had to bang my head against the wall with trying to get some places where the faculty member just doesn't really want to put the time in. So that's a big thing. Keep communications open. Everybody hits problems, and you just don't know where they're going to come from. Every school is different. So you got to make sure you have regular meetings. You call up the people. You go and visit. You have to make sure that the communication lines keep open. You may have to go to the top. We've had to do that before. We actually had to go and meet with the president and said, we don't want to throw, try to get you guys out of here. We want you to be a good part of this. And they will come down on people. Sometimes it takes that. And then, as I say, you got to help push those articulation and curriculum alignment efforts at your own institution, because the more they see you working on this from the administrative level, the more they're going to participate and put effort into it as well. So as you can see, this takes a little bit of work to get this going. Okay. Again, heavy oversight. Start early. You got to go right away. Faculty administrators are not registered with NSF and don't know how to do it. We already went through that. Review documentation and practices and make sure everything is followed. I mean, a lot of these, grants, you have to follow things to the letter. Got to make sure everybody understands it. Okay. Also, as I said, WebAMP. If you're going to do if this is for LSAMP, WebAMP is important, and you got to make sure that they do it correctly. We've had all kinds of problems with ours. Visit. Make sure you show up. Don't just assume that everybody's going to do it on their own. Okay. Next. Okay, so summary. I see somebody had their hand up, so I'm going to have to figure out how to do that in a minute. You got to entice the community college students into the pathway, prepare them for a seamless transition to a 4-year program. Okay, so first you got to entice them. You got to get them into it. A lot of people will not join. You have to tell them the reason why the community colleges should participate in this. So you're going to have to go to the community colleges, work with the faculty, work with the administrators, and be able to try to get the word out to the community college students that they should continue on past that associate's degree. We want to prepare them for a seamless transition as best you can to have them understand what they'll need to do and what things they can do to get them to move ahead. You want to make the transition as simple as possible and as inviting as possible. Make it friendly. As I said, people look at this as a plate of spaghetti. Where can you trace one line of spaghetti all the way up to the other side of your plate? You can't. So that's the big thing. Follow up on transfers. Watch those critical junctures. There are certain spots, calculus, chemistry, things like that, where you're going to lose them. And so you watch the critical junctures. This is a big thing even at the graduate level. There's a big program, Fisk Vanderbilt, where they watch all those critical junctures, handoffs between the different programs, and make sure you don't have people fall between the cracks because you lose them. Okay. Next thing is working closely with the faculty and administrators, and leave nothing to chance, because something's going to come up that you did least expect it, and it's going to give you a problem. So let's see. I think we got a question here. You mentioned 5 associate member community colleges early. Is there a distinction between associate member status and a partner institution? Is Essex County College a full-fledged partner? Yes, Essex County College was part of the Garden State LSAMP from day one. The community colleges we added later, and we put aside some money for the associate members so they could participate as well. We did not have that much, flexibility in the budget, but nonetheless, and we had them so that we could have faculty go over and give talks, advise them, things like that. If they wanted to have people come, we'd have people give them tours, just things like that. We couldn't put much money into it. The other associate members we added later in year 4 of our phase 1, and then they became the whole Northern New Jersey Bridges to the Baccalaureate when we got that grant. Okay, so they were associate members for about a year and a half, and then they became their own Northern New Jersey Bridges to the Baccalaureate. So we all still meet together, but now they're in a different status. Okay, I think that might be the last one. Yeah. Okay. So okay, you're welcome. Okay. So any other, at this point I can take questions. Okay, the first question is, have you seen increased enrollment at your community college, or is it too soon for those results? We see the transfer we see is working very nicely. So our transfer numbers are all up. I think we had some very nice results that we tied directly to the mentoring, the 4-year to 2-year mentoring. We had an increase in transfers by about 30% that year. And we had a decrease in our LSAMP members that were on academic probation by 25%. So the cross-campus mentoring program showed very good results. And as I said, when we have the students doing the research experiences, we're getting very good transfer rates. We had, as I said, we sponsored 56 research experiences from 2-year colleges to 4-year colleges last year, and every single one of those students transferred. So we had 100% transfer rate. Now, of course, these are better students to begin with. They may have transferred anyway. I can't really say we haven't done the study where we have compare it to other years, but nonetheless, that's what we have done. As far as the enrollments at community colleges, we're kind of in a bad spell right now because I don't know if this is nationally, but certainly in the Northeast, we peaked out in our birth rate they peaked out at about 2009. It's coming downhill now. So in fact, our enrollments most of our community colleges have gone down over the past 2 years, which is not good. So. You're welcome. Okay. I think someone is typing. Or anybody else, feel free to ask questions. I will answer them in a row. Okay. Does New Jersey have standardized course numbering and curriculum alignment statewide? I think I'm losing that. Statewide is one of our issues in Virginia. Individual 4-year schools have their own articulation agreement and courses aren't standardized. So what may be accepted as transfer credit at one 4-year school is not accepted in another. This makes it difficult unless they're transfer students are known at the beginning of the career that they will transfer. Yep, that is definitely a problem. New Jersey has a couple of things in place that are very useful. One of them is called Lampett's Law, which was passed, I think, about 4 or 5 years ago, which meant that all students, if you completed an associate's degree, you automatically had to have all of your courses accepted at every state institution in the state, and you automatically satisfied the general ed requirements. Now, as far as aligning curricula, that still remains a bit problematic. As far as the courses go, we have a website called NJ Transfer, where you can actually look up a course that you've taken, you plug it into the website, and it will tell you what it's equivalent to at all of the other state institutions in New Jersey. So that is a very useful device. However, we still have articulation agreements and alignment issues on all levels. And so this agreement that we've had between the B2B and the Garden State LSAMP has actually opened the gateway for discussions to be going on, trying all kinds of new things. We have one institution that is trying a dual enrollment with a community college. So in fact, as you enroll in the community college, you are also enrolled in the four-year school at the same time. We'll see how well that works. They've just been doing that for a year. I know they're doing that in other states as well. And also, we are now, like even at our school, they now have started, I guess, a more alignment, could be more articulation agreements with 3 of the community colleges just because of the LSAMP B2B connection. So in fact, it helps. So kind of that's about that's the start of that. Okay. All right. I think that's John. Who's next? Okay. Could you show the graph of topics covered by Alex again? All right. Let's see. Let me go back. And of course, I think you're going to be able to get these slides. So any of the things you can get. But there is Alex. So, you know, those are the courses. As I say, it makes a little pie. So you take the test and you can see the different levels of the pie. And if you're good at something, it goes all the way out to the end. If you're not so good, it's inside. And so it designs the exercises to best make it so that so it's like going to the gym and having a personal trainer tell you what you need to work on. It's basically the same thing for math, and it does it automatically. So we've had really outstanding success with this. So here it's shown up. Okay, what has been the transfer rate for 2-year technology students to the 4-year? I don't know that off the top of my head. I apologize for that. We looked at it before. I have all the information because we had to put it together to write up proposals, but I'm not positive right now. So I'm going to have to pass on that. I apologize. I could look it up for you and send it later. Okay, do I have any other questions here? Any other questions at this point? Okay, good. Okay, so the course content, you're welcome. So the course, could you describe the course content of My Foundations Lab a bit more? Okay, so basically, again, it's broken into different modules that the students will then look at, and the content is, you know, it's for basic preparedness for college. And it works very well. You know, we did it for our students coming in, who would come in and really didn't understand what it meant to be a college student, didn't understand time management, how to take notes, how to study. Those are the things that it has. So it's study skills, it's time management, it's note taking, it's it's how to write research papers. There's even a math module in here. And you know, if you go to, you could certainly go online to Pearson and see what they offer. But we modified it because, again, if you have students that really, you know, especially the ones who are at risk, they wouldn't be at risk if they weren't having problems. So the best thing to do is to monitor those and have somebody watch over it. We used our LSAMP students. We paid them to monitor the system, and then they could just tell us if somebody really wasn't progressing the way they had when we had them in the room. Because a lot of the work they can do at home, you really don't have to have them in a lab to do that. So we actually let them work remotely in most cases, and the ones that did fine at home and were making good progress, we didn't even bother to make them come in, except once every week or two. We'd have them come in just to meet with us to make sure that there weren't any problems. But that's all we did with that. And you know, the ones who did have problems, we would ask them to come in on a regular basis, and then we could help them to make sure that they were progressing well. But all it does is it tells them how, basically all the basic skills of how to be a college student. Do you incentivize four-year faculty to engage, make presence, mentor, etc. at the two-year schools? If how? Ooh, that's a tough one. Luckily, we've had a lot of, obviously some faculty members are going to want to do this because they're good citizens of the school and other ones won't. So we mostly do it on a voluntary basis, and you'd be surprised, especially if you can get the dean or provost or chancellor or whatever to tell people that this is a priority. And then they will actually get involved. So we've had pretty good luck in that we have not, and especially with the LSAMP, we didn't pay them anything to sponsor those students over the summer. The B2B pays the four-year schools some lab costs, $300 or $400, that's it, to be involved. Otherwise, everything else is done purely on a voluntary basis. And you would think in New Jersey, nobody does anything on a voluntary basis. But in fact, everybody did. So I'm very, happy with that. Okay, what's the next one? Okay, that's the incentivizing. Has your institution partnered with the GEM Grad Lab? No, not yet. I shouldn't say this, but at the graduate level, we're working on it now to try to move things forward on the graduate level. It's not as good as it could be, but we're starting to move forward on improving. Obviously, a couple more years, we're going to try to go for the Bridges to the Doctorate program here, but right now we've got a ways to go. So. Okay, the next one is, will we get a copy of the slides and the recording, or just the thing? That's John. Okay, you're welcome. Welcome everybody. Okay, I think we still have a few more minutes, so. You're welcome. I'm happy to do this. Oh, great. Well, thank you everybody for attending. And, if you have any, I'm at, by the way, I'm at agates@rutgers.edu. So that's AGATES at rutgers.edu. If you would like to ask me a question outside of this, you think of something else along the way that you didn't think of today, or maybe you have a suggestion for me, I'm open to all suggestions. So feel free to email me. And I would be happy to talk to you outside of this and, provide any information, or, if you just want to get in touch with me in a few months and say, hey, how's it going now? Anything new? I'd be happy to bring you up to date and tell you whether we've run into any other problems that we have had to overcome. That's usually what we do.
For those of you that are still in the room, if you can take a minute and fill out the evaluation in the evaluation link pod in the lower left-hand corner, we'd appreciate it. If not, if you've given me your email address, you'll receive an email with a link as well to the eval so that we can let Dr. Gates know what we think about him.
Yeah, be nice.
Yeah, be nice.